Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. And we have a special show for you guys tonight. Tonight, we are talking about the coaching hires for the Dallas Cowboys. If you guys have been paying attention to Twitter and social media, you will see that pretty much the entire coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball has been filled out. So we're going to go through every coaching hire. I'm going to give you guys some background about all the guys, let you know how they fit in this scheme, and then we're going to do a deeper dive into what we can expect from this coaching staff schematically, personnel, etc. So this is going to be an ongoing discussion about the Cowboys coaching staff. So far, there have not been any offensive coaches hired. So we'll probably come back next week. I would expect by next week that we'll have the offensive side rounded out. But tonight, we're going to focus specifically on all the defensive assistants that have been hired. And I've been kind of going nonstop on researching these for the past couple of hours. I'm just going to let you guys know on the front end, we made some really good decisions. So I'm looking forward to talking about all of these coaches, what position they coach, what experience they have, and what it'll mean for the team next year. So before we get started, I want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. I see the views are starting to go up pretty quickly. So if you haven't done so already, make sure that you join the DC4L Facebook group. A lot of great information, a lot of great dialogue, prizes, giveaways, your number one location for all Cowboys news and notes. Also, DC4L has a YouTube channel. I see we got one person watching from YouTube right now. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to go to YouTube, find DC4L Facebook group, hit that subscribe button. And also, while you're there, if you would, please hit that button, find Bluff City Cowboys, hit that subscribe button. I put the link in the comments. So if you guys could just take 1 second at one point to just go over there, click that link, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be doing a lot more lives this year. So I would really appreciate all of you guys' support. As you know, the Fifth Quarter Podcast is fueled by your questions and comments. So I think that's pretty much all we have for the intros right now. So let's get into it. I see the views are going up. I love hearing what you guys have to say. So if you can, please hop in the comment section. If you have any questions, have any comments, I got a lot of information for you guys tonight. I've done a deep dive into all the coaches, and I'm really excited about sharing this information with you guys, and also getting your feedback on what you think about our coaching hires. And I see Amanda Foster joining us. She also put the link to the DC4L YouTube channel as well. So if you guys get a chance, the link is in the comments. Be sure to click on that link, hit that subscribe button. And for you first-time viewers, if you didn't know already, once we both get to 1,000, Amanda beat me to it, we're going to do a major giveaway once both pages get to 1,000 subscribers. I believe she's going to give away autographed jersey. So help us get those numbers up, and you guys can have a chance at a free Dallas Cowboys autographed jersey. I see the views are still going up. Thank you guys for joining. Let's go ahead and get into it. So what I really want to talk about tonight, we made a lot of moves in the past 72 hours, starting with our head coach. So as you guys know, new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys is Brian Schottenheimer, son of the legendary coach Marty Schottenheimer, known most for his, I'm sorry, Amanda says it's a full-size autograph helmet, not a jersey. It's a helmet. So be sure to click that button. Help us get those subscribers up. So back to Brian Schottenheimer, legendary coach as a dad, known for a specific brand of football. He tends to be a chip off the old block in certain ways. But let's just talk a little bit about what we can expect from Brian Schottenheimer team. So first of all, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information about his coaching history. So in terms of his coaching history, and we got Cook Benoist joining us. Thank you for joining. Also, James Jefferson, thank you for joining. So give you guys some background on his coaching history. He started off as the Jets offensive coordinator, 2016, 2006. I apologize. Should be 2006 to 2011. Those were the Rex Ryan years where they went to back-to-back AFC championship games. Both times beat by the Patriots. I see we got my guy Jeff joining us. Jeff, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate your support. From there, Schottenheimer went to the Rams under Jeff Fisher for 3 years as their offensive coordinator. And then he took a brief break, went to college. I believe he was at Georgia for a couple of years. Then he got another opportunity to coach the Seattle Seahawks during the end of their Legion of Boom dynasty from 2018 to 2020. This is what they called the Let Russ Cook era, where the team went away from being a smash mouth, run the ball consistently team to allowing Russell Wilson to be a franchise quarterback. Under the 3 years of Brian Schottenheimer, they were the 3 best offensive production years of Russell Wilson's career. He took another short break, and then he came back to join the Cowboys coaching staff for 2013 and 2014 as an offensive coordinator. But as we have heard from media outlets and what has been insinuated by the front office, he was only offensive coordinator in name. He did not get to put a stamp on the offense by running his own plays or calling his own scheme. Wilson did also have the best defense in the league, and we'll get to that in a minute. Rich Muniz, so thank you for bringing that up. I'll make a note of that. But Russ, during those 3 years, did have his best offensive production. From 2018 to 2020, that was kind of the tail end of Legion of Boom. So Richard Sherman had moved on. I think Cam Chancellor was kind of up in age. They were still great. They were still good, but they weren't as elite as they were from 2012 to 2017. So let's take another look into what his scheme entails. And we went through this last week. He loves an inside zone running scheme. So that means they're going to focus on from B gap to B gap. He loves working off the play action, off the run. He prefers big, versatile running backs. His scheme is predicated on giving his quarterback easy reads. So he likes to do a lot of crossers, a lot of deep post. He likes to shorten the field to make it a half field read for the quarterback. And he does not have a lot of creativity in his scheme. He likes to keep it as simple as possible. Now, I do have a chart. I've been kind of playing around with this. So I'm going to try to pull this up just so I can give you guys a visual of what a typical Brian Schottenheimer offensive play will look like. So if you guys can kind of bear with me for a second, I'm going to try to pull this up. Let me know if you guys can see this, because if I can get this to work, I'm going to be doing a lot more drawing up of plays. All right, so just a pretty standard X's and O's screen. So triangles are the offense, circles are the defense. This is a basic 11 personnel. And let me know if you guys can see this or not, because I really want to make sure everybody can kind of see what I'm doing right here. So this is a basic 11 personnel. You got one tight end. You got a tight end right here. You got your Z receiver. You got your slot. You got your X, one running back. So this is a basic play in Brian Schottenheimer offense. So, running back is normally going to go. We're going to do our play action. So, the running back, let's say the play is going to the right side of the field, to this side of the field. So, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to manipulate the linebackers and the safety. We're only focused on one side of the field. So these are the three guys we're going to focus on in terms of our play. All right. So running back, play action. He's going to get the ball. He's going to run a curl route right here. This slot receiver is going to run a drag route. This receiver is going to run fade route, go route. This tight end is going to run a post. So what we're trying to do is, let's say this team is in zone. So this linebacker is going to cover, let me change the color so I don't get too confusing. This linebacker is going to cover the flat right here. This corner is going to cover deep. This linebacker is going to cover middle. So what we're trying to do is we're going to first use this running back to draw one of these linebackers out of position. So if this running back runs a curl route, we're going to hope this linebacker sits on the curl route. If he does, we're going to throw it to this tight end running a post route. Now, I did a terrible job of drawing the post route. It should actually look more like this because you're going to try to run inside of this safety. So if this running back draws this linebacker down, you got an easy post route right here. If this linebacker stays and this linebacker goes to the running back, you've got your drag route right here. And then this wide receiver over here is going to run a dig route, which will be a 15-yard curl. So let's just assume this linebacker goes here. Linebacker goes to the flat. This linebacker is running trail position behind the corner. If all that happens, you've got an easy throw right here to this backside receiver. And if all else fails, let's say this safety comes down on this tight end. Now you throw your go route because it's one-on-one. So this is kind of what Brian Schottenheimer likes to do. He likes to give the quarterback easy reads. So by the time the quarterback does his bootleg, he's about right here, 5-step drop. So by the time he gets here, this play is pretty much developed. So by the time the quarterback fakes the handoff and turns around, he can pretty much see what this linebacker's doing, what this linebacker's doing, what that safety's doing. So that will dictate where he throws the ball. And there are different variations of this, but this one is kind of the basic concept of what Brian Schottenheimer wants to do in his scheme. So let's go a little bit more talking about the scheme, because during his press conference, he brought up a couple of very interesting notes that I really want to touch base on. So as a part of his press conference, and it's Edgar, thank you for joining us. Johnny Dan Alanese, another regular, thank you for tuning in also. Okay, let's go to what he said in his press conference. So in his press conference, he made note of 4 main things. Number 1, he likes the use of what's called a cut split. And I'll show you guys what a cut split means in a second. He prefers an up-tempo offense. He likes to use a lot of shifts and motions. And he wants to marry the run game and the pass game, which essentially means he wants every play, he wants the run and the pass to look the same. And what he wants to accomplish with that is he wants to make those linebackers think. So when every time they do a play, the linebacker needs to decide, Am I going to step down and fill the gap, or am I going to get back into coverage and cover my position? So let's go back to the chart again, and I'll show you guys a little bit more of what I'm talking about. And once again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. I definitely want to make sure everybody kind of understands what we're doing in this scheme and kind of what I'm talking about. So if you got any questions, let me know. All right. And Jeff, we've all been begging for up tempo. Dak has shown he's always a better quarterback when it's up tempo. He doesn't have to think. The reads come easy. You're gonna give him a strong running game. This is the definition of a Dak friendly offense. So I'm excited to see this. All right. So I brought up the term cut splits. So what a cut split means is you guys see this slot right here. In a normal offensive formation, the slot is halfway between the X receiver right here and the tackle. A cut split means we're going to move this wide receiver right here. He's going to be closer to the line of scrimmage. Now, we do that for two reasons. Reason number one, let's look. If the wide receiver's right here, let's see if I can move this bar. Okay, this app won't let me move the bar. Okay, but if the receiver's right here, look at where the corner's lined up at. Even though the receiver is off the line of scrimmage, that corner is still a yard away. Now, let's see what happens when we do a cut split and we put the receiver right here. Now, this corner now has to go from here to here. He's almost lined up behind the defensive end. So this gives this receiver a better advantage because now this receiver has more options. He wants to run a flare route, he can do that. If he wants to run a quick out, he can do that because this corner's back, he has more separation to run this out. Or if we do the route that we just talked about, if he wants to run the drag route, now this corner has to fight through a lot more garbage to get close to this receiver. So this receiver gets a better running start because this corner right here, now when he was right here, it was pretty much when the corner was there, he could pretty much just go right here. But now, if we run a cut split and he's a little bit further behind the defensive end, now he's right here. Now, in order to trail that wide receiver, he's starting here. So now he has to come like this. So he's already at a disadvantage. If this wide receiver can clear this defensive end and get a running start, this cornerback is already two yards behind him. So that gives this receiver a much better advantage. It gives him a better two-way go, and it also makes this cornerback have to sift through a little bit more garbage to catch up to that receiver. And by the way, we're going to see a lot of drag routes in this scheme. So this drag route is going to be seen quite a bit in this new offense. So get used to seeing that. Now, if anybody wants me to go back to the board in a second, you got any questions, feel free to let me know. All right, so going back to Brian Schottenheimer's scheme. We talked about marrying the run and the pass. We talked about up tempo. We talked about shifts and motions. Now, Cowboys fans who pay attention to the past 5 years, two things we've always complained about, and Jeff touched on one of them. Thank you, Jeff. It's a natural pick route. You're using the defensive player to give you your pick instead of the offensive player having to manufacture one. So, yeah. So, two things we haven't seen. One, we have not seen consistent up tempo. In this scheme, there's going to be a lot more running and there's going to be a lot more up tempo because the way the plays are going to be ran, you're going to be able to get back to the line of scrimmage quicker. So because you got guys running drag routes and curl routes and skinny post, there are no more 20-yard routes. Everybody's going to be within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. It's up to the quarterback to make that read. Once you make that catch, everybody's pretty much back at the line of scrimmage and you're ready to go. Number two, we haven't seen a lot of shifts and motions out of this game. That's going to be something that's going to be brand new. So we're going to see a lot more of what we've been asking for. Hopefully, we see a lot more of what we've been asking for from Brian Schottenheimer's scheme. All right, I see those views are still going up. Thank you guys who just joined us recently. We are talking about all of the Dallas Cowboys coaching hires. I see we got quite a few people watching from Twitter or X. So thank you guys for watching from X. If you guys have any questions on X, feel free to get in the comments. If you can't comment on X, I would ask that you click that link, go to YouTube or Facebook, because I would love to hear what you guys got to say over on Twitter. And like Rich Muniz says, Dallas was always better in a hurry up. And that's exactly what I think Brian Schottenheimer is going to bring us. And you also said big explosive backs. Dowdle is definitely a good fit for that. I think Dowdle's going to come back, and he's going to be paired with another running back. This is probably the deepest running back class that we've seen in 8 or 9 years. Ashton Genty, definitely going to be on the top of everybody's list. We will definitely have to kind of pay attention to how free agency works, Charles Moon. Thank you for joining. We'll have to see what we do in free agency, and that'll give us a really good idea of what's going to happen in the draft. And Theroux Burns Sr., thank you for joining. Looks like a new name. You say we need a good fullback. Well, we do still have I just went blank on his name, but we do still have our fullback from last year. So yeah, we do have a fullback on the roster. We haven't seen him much as a blocker, so I think we'll probably see a little bit of that this year. William Wiggins says we're going to get more up to date on the offensive side, but went backwards on D. Eberflus don't really rush, nor does he disguise what he's doing. Thank you, Jeff Hunter Lepke. That's the fullback. Great comment, William Wiggins. We're about to go to defense now, and I'm going to tell you why I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. Jeff, I won't be diagnosing Eberflus's defense tonight. I'll probably get to it next week once I have a little bit more time. While I got the chart up, I may go into a little bit of his scheme. So let me get through my stuff, Jeff, and then I'll try to come back to that. All right, so let's go to the special teams coach next, and then we'll go to the defense. And I'm marking all the questions about defense as we get to it. So let's talk about our new special teams hire, and that is Sorensen from the 49ers. So now, we just hired a special teams coach. Give you guys a little bit of background about his history. He was the assistant special teams coach in Seattle from 2013 to 2016. And if you guys followed on Twitter, I said I'm going to give you guys a lot of references on how our defense is going to have a lot of influence from the Niners and the Seattle defenses. It's quite a bit of similarities in terms of coaching staffs. So Sorensen was the assistant special teams coach in Seattle, 2013 to 2016. 2017 to 2020, he became the DB coach. So he was right at the tail end of the Legion of Boom. From there, He went to Jacksonville as a special teams coach. He was at Jacksonville at the same time as Brian Schottenheimer. And then from 2022 to 2024, he was the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. He got fired this offseason, and now he's joining the Cowboys as a special teams coach. Now, I know a lot of fans are upset, and great question is, Edgar, is he an upgrade? Been seeing a lot of hate. Let me say this. Great question. I don't think he's an upgrade, but I don't think that's a problem because even though he's not as great of a special teams coach as Bones Fossil, which, by the way, there's maybe one or two special teams coaches in the history of football who are better than Bones Fossil. So we were never going to upgrade from him regardless of who we got. What he does bring us is he does bring us some insight into that Niners defense and culture. Looking at the chart, he was the Niners defensive coordinator from 2022 to 2024. For you guys who pay attention behind the scenes, a lot of those guys from the 49ers defense, Ken Norton Jr., Robert Saleh, the coach for the Texans, I just went blank on his name. All of those guys came from Seattle. So from 2013 to 2020, all of those 49er defensive guys, they were all within that Seattle defensive culture. So he's going to give us a lot of insight into what the San Francisco 49ers do in terms of defense. And to me, I feel like that's even more valuable. Thank you, Jeff. D'Amico Ryans. I feel like that's even more valuable than what he can provide as a special teams coach. Because let's be honest, it's Edgar. Our kicker is an all-pro 2-time. Our punter is a former all-pro. Our kick and punt returner is an all-pro. Our gunner and jammer is arguably top 3 at his position. So at all the key positions on our team, we already have all pros or Pro Bowl caliber players. What do we really need a special teams coach to provide us? It's not like we have a young, inexperienced special teams and we need somebody to come in and teach them. We have a pretty veteran squad. So really all he has to do is just keep it afloat. He's going to be more valuable as a guy to give us some insight into that Niners defense. And also, he's a young guy. He's going to be energetic on the sideline. He's going to bring that juice that I think our defense and special teams has been missing for the past couple of years. So I'm not as excited about him as a special teams coach, but I am excited because he's going to give us that San Francisco 49ers defensive recipe to help us maybe flip that switch on. And he's also, because he's a defensive coach, he's going to give us some insight on some defensive tricks he may have done in practice to help slow down that offense that always seems to beat us. So that's pretty much what I have on Sorensen. DeLunatic, thank you for joining. You're 100% right. Howie Roseman is running circles around everybody. His ability to manipulate the salary cap is second to none. I mean, us and every other team, we're pretty much at a point where we got to do it with whatever players we get on the field. We can't rely on the front office to win us a Super Bowl, to be honest. Jeff says we might be able to talk Greenlaw into coming to Dallas. That's another good point. I talked about this, and once we go into free agency, I'll bring this chart back again. But people think players go to teams solely because of money, and that's not true. Players will go to a team just as much for a coach or familiarity with a scheme than they will for money, because the money's large no matter where they go. The question is my coach going to put me in the best situation to make more money in the future? And am I going to be in a situation where I like the environment? Players really focus on those two things a lot. And having Sorensen here will give us a little bit of that cachet to maybe steal a couple of defensive players from the 49ers. Okay, we're at 30 minutes. Thank you guys for joining. A lot of questions still coming, a lot of comments. Thank you for joining Kelly Eads. Looks like a new name, so appreciate that. Charles Moon, once again, thank you for joining us. William Wiggins. All right, so we talked about our head coach. So far, we have not hired any offensive position coaches. And I know a lot of people have seemed to be concerned about that. I'm not concerned at all, and I'll tell you guys why. If you look at the way Dallas has operated for the past 25 years, the front office has chosen the coaching staffs, even going back to Bill Parcells. He didn't get to choose his own coaching staff outside of Sean Payton. Everybody on that coaching staff was inherited from the last coaching staff, or it was one of his buddies, Jerry Jones' buddies. Every coach who's come through, they've had to inherit an offensive coordinator. They've had to inherit a defensive coordinator. They've had to inherit position coaches who are already here, like a Leon Lett, guys like that, lifelong Cowboys guys. I feel positive that because we haven't picked the offensive coordinator yet, that tells me they're allowing Brian Schottenheimer to pick his own staff. Now, what that does is two things. Number one, that tells me that he's going to run the scheme he wants to run. And number two, he's going to be able to build a coaching staff who's familiar with that scheme and can help him teach that scheme at every position. Because let's go back to Kellen Moore. If Kellen Moore is running a scheme where he wants to get the ball out quickly, a lot of curl routes, a lot of quick hitches, but our wide receiver coach is from a scheme that runs 20-yard routes, that's a conflict. He doesn't know how to teach guys how to turn their body, be ready to catch the ball, get upfield, stuff like that. The nuances of the game that some players need help with. I feel like now Schottenheimer's going to pick guys who fit his scheme. Charles Moon said we need an offensive-minded coordinator. Well, Charles, it sounds like Schottenheimer's going to be calling the plays. So I don't think the offensive coordinator matters as much as it would in years past. I wouldn't be surprised if our offensive coordinator is an offensive line coach, because Schottenheimer's going to run the ball a lot, and he's going to want somebody to help him with his run game coordinating. Oscar Martinez looks like a new name, so thank you for joining. You asked the question, is Jerry the problem, or is the hired coach the issue, no matter who it is, by not setting his foot down and be the head coach? That's why I believe Jimmy got cut. I think both of those are right. I think Jerry's the problem, and he chooses coaches who won't put their foot down. So if you have a coach who's going to be a yes man, it's going to be hard to make changes. Now, I know people feel like, well, Brian Schottenheimer was here before. He's going to give us the same thing we got from before. I feel like it might be a little bit different. For one, he said in the press conference, he came here because he wanted to call the plays. And if he wasn't going to call the plays, he wasn't going to take the job. I haven't heard any other coach say that. Mike McCarthy didn't call the plays. He had to go with whatever Kellen Moore did. Before him, Jason Garrett didn't get to call the plays. He had to inherit Kellen Moore. He had Scott Linehan. He had Brian Callahan. Other coaches, Wes Phillips, he didn't get to call the defense. Bill Parcells didn't get to call the defense. Our coaches have not had a chance to call what they want to call or pick their coaches. I feel like the fact that Schottenheimer's pretty much said, I'm calling the plays, and he's getting a chance to pick his staff and apparently take his time picking his staff, that gives me some hope that maybe he's going to have a little bit more influence and he's going to maybe pull. I said Wes Phillips. Thank you, Jeff. I meant Wade. So I feel like the fact that he's getting a chance to pick his staff and take his time and not take whatever guys Jerry has given him, like a Jason Witten or DeMarco Murray, Tashard Choice talk, or Mark Colombo, since none of those guys have been just thrown on them right away, that makes me feel like Brian Schottenheimer is going to have a chance to have a say in what he wants to do. Now, whether that's a pass or a fail, we'll find out. But at least it looks like he's getting a chance to wear his own pants and call his own shots. William Wiggins saying we should have at least interviewed Slowick. I mean, I agree. I still don't think this was the best hire, but I think it's the best hire we're going to get. Slowick had one good year, but outside of that last year, I mean, it was pretty mediocre, to be honest. So it's not like Slowick was a slam dunk, no question hire. So I feel like we need to give Schottenheimer some grace. He has a lot of experience and a lot of success in the league. All right, so we talked about the offensive coach. We talked about special teams. Let's jump into defense, where I got a lot of notes to talk about. And I hope I don't go over everybody's head. If, again, you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments because got a lot of stuff to talk about. Jeff says, wonder what plays Shotty likes as far as offense. I think the play that I drew up, Jeff, that's going to be the basic concept. You're going to have a backside curl route. You're going to have the slant across the field with the slot. You're going to have the tight end running a post or a corner route, depending on what that safety's doing. And then the Z receiver on the strong side is going to be running a go. So William Wiggins says Slowick for OC. Well, we haven't heard anything about OC yet, so you never know. It could be in the runnings. Oh, you said players. My fault. What player Shotty's likes? From what I've seen, just looking at his history, he does like big, versatile running backs. So your Marshawn Lynch's, your LaDainian Tomlinson, your Sean Green, your the running back for Seattle. They drafted him in the first round. I hate when I go live, Jeff, because as you know, I always go blank. Seattle drafted a running back in the first round around 2018. I'll look it up in a second. So Kalen Carson was one back. I can't remember the other one, but I'll look into it. But yeah, in terms of receivers, he likes shifty guys because, like I said, it's going to be up tempo. It's going to be quick. He wants guys who can get in and out of their breaks quick. He wants guys who can get upfield and run their curl route quick. He wants the guys who run their go route to be fast. So you're going to look at your DK Metcalfs, your Tyler Lockett's in Seattle. Then you go to the Jets. You got your Jericho Cotcheries, your DJ Charks in Jacksonville. So he's gonna. I said Kalen Carson. I meant Chris. But yeah, in terms of offense, he wants fast guys. He wants guys who can get to their spots quickly. Personally, I don't think our receivers fit that mold except for Turpin. So even though we have a full house of receivers, I do expect to see another speed guy come in at some point. Braylon Edwards, that's another guy with the Jets. But Jericho Cotchery also. He does not use tight ends as much as receivers. So unlike McCarthy and Kellen Moore, who like to run 12 personnel with two tight ends, I don't think we're going to see that as much with Brian Schottenheimer. So if we carried 4 tight ends last year, I would probably expect to see us not retain one of our tight ends, maybe trade Schoonmaker, maybe trade Jake Ferguson, bring in another shifty receiver who can come in and play the X like a Hollywood Brown. I think that's a guy who's really high as a Brian Schottenheimer type guy. Mike Williams is another guy I think will be a good Schottenheimer receiver. And Stephon Diggs, if he returns healthy, I think he's a guy you could see as a Schottenheimer receiver. Okay, so we talked about the offense. Let's go talk about this defense because we made a lot of moves in the past 12 hours. So before we talk about the defense, let's talk about our defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus, and his coaching history. So for you guys who remember, Eberflus started his career as the linebackers coach and the passing game coordinator for the Cowboys from 2011 to 2017. From there, he got a defensive coordinator job with the Colts from 2018 to 21. And from there, he got a head coaching job with the Bears from 2022 to 2024. Now, he did coach Mark Sanchez 2 AFC titles. I brought that up at the beginning of the show. Demetrius Adams, thank you for joining. Thank you for that recall. Now, talking about Matt Eberflus's coaching philosophy, he believes in what's called the HITS coaching principle. Somebody brought it up before. He doesn't blitz. He believes in hustle. He comes from the Rod Marinelli, Monty Kiffin, Tony Dungy, Tampa 2, do your job. I want smart physical guys who can make plays. And he also believes in the strength of the defense is right up the middle. If you guys follow BJ Nix of Pick Six Sports, and he does a lot of stuff on Twitter, he always talks about that. Defenses are built up the middle of the field. So that's your defensive tackles, that's your linebackers, that's your safeties. That's how Matt Eberflus builds his defense. So he believes in hustle. He wants guys who are going to fly to the ball. He believes in intensity. He likes to run a one-gap scheme, so he wants guys going up the field with their hair on fire on every snap. He believes in takeaways. He runs a corner. He runs a cover 2, so he likes his corners to play underneath the receivers, so they're better. They have better opportunities to get takeaways. Those safeties are going to stay deep to help cover them. He likes to have linebackers who are rangy, who can get their hands on the ball also. And then the last one, I've read differing views about this one. It could stand for smarts because he wants smart guys, or it could stand for simplicity because he wants the playbook to be simple, but he wants guys to execute it well. Okay, so digging deeper into his coaching scheme. Like I just mentioned, his coaching influences, Rod Marinelli, Monty Kiffin, Tony Dungy. He's a cover 1, cover 2 scheme type player. So let me go back to the chart again, Jeff, since I brought this up. Let's take it back to the chart so I can show you guys the basics of a cover 2 scheme. So in a cover 2 scheme, he runs a lot of nickel, which means 2 linebackers, 5 DBs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 DBs. This is your wheel linebacker. This is your Mike linebacker right here. So cover 2. This safety is going to cover this half of the field. All of this is him. Nobody gets behind him. This safety is going to cover this half of the field. All of this is him. Nobody gets behind him. These corners are going to run either a man where if this receiver runs a route like this, this corner is going to be right here. Always try to play inside leverage. This receiver runs an out route. This corner is going to be right here under it. If he runs a drag, this corner is going to be right here under it, because he's got these safeties over top that are always going to help and never let anybody get deeper than them. So we got the cornerbacks. If they're playing man, they're playing underneath. If they're playing zone, they're covering 15 yards. So this is him. This is him. So that covers this part of the field. Now you got your linebackers. Your middle linebacker is covering this. So this is his. And then this linebacker is going to cover the flat. So this is him. And then you got this corner who's going to, if it's a zone, he's going to cover here, pretty much taking the slack of this linebacker. If it's a man, he's playing underneath this receiver and he's going to trail, just like I just talked about with those outside corners. So this is the basis of a cover 2 Tampa 2 defense. William Wiggins saying, I hate the no blitzing thing. I understand it. I'm right there with you. But if you look at the history of a Matt Eberflus, a Tony Dungy, a Leslie Frazier, Rod Marinelli, their schemes don't blitz, and they get a lot of sacks and a lot of turnovers. So if you've watched the the LA Rams, you watch the Buffalo Bills, you watch them playing in the playoffs, those are the same concepts that I'm showing you right here. These 4 guys, their job is to headhunt. So you're going to have athletic, physical defensive tackles, defensive ends who are all going to pressure the quarterback. So, Jeff, you asked me to give you a little bit about what his scheme looks like. So let's say it's cover 2. He also runs cover 1. So cover 1 means this safety has all of this. Nobody gets past him. Cornerbacks, same thing, 15 yards if it's zone, or stay underneath if it's man. If you run cover 1, you're going to see more zone. And this safety, instead of the safety, is going to cover the flat in cover 1. And then these linebackers are both going to cover here. So that's kind of the basics of a cover 1 defense. So it's similar, but it's a huge difference. And then you got to disguise it so people can't really know whether you're doing cover 2 or cover 1. So those are kind of the basics of Matt Eberflus' defense. Get rid of the current coach and hire somebody else. Timothy Rembert, what coach would you want? And give me a realistic answer on what coach you would want that you think, that you know would come in and do a better job than Brian Schottenheimer. I'm just wondering what coach you know can come in and do a better job, that has the experience and the track record that you can confidently say he's going to be a better head coach. But yeah, Jeff, he relies heavily on the front 4 to get sacks and penetrate. Charles Moon, we're going to have a shutdown defensive system. He definitely believes in a bend but don't break defense. So cover 1, cover 2. He believes in a 1 gap penetrating front 4. So there's no more defensive tackles who's going to 2 gap, where you come off the ball, you stand the guard up, or you try to play the gap. No. In this new scheme, everybody's got a gap. Your job is to go through that gap and get pressure. And if the running back happens to get past you, it's up to the linebackers to clean it up. So he puts a lot of responsibility and emphasis on the linebacker position. Minimal blitzing, like I mentioned before. They will throw an occasional corner blitz in there because sometimes you run a cover two zone. You're able to hide that blitzing nickel back with the linebackers. But for the most part, you're going to rely on getting the most athletic four defensive linemen you can who can generate a pass rush. Good question by the Lunatic. Is Mozzie and Eberflus type of DB because we probably losing Osa to free agency? I don't know the answer to that question, the Lunatic. I wish I did. If we see Mozzie from Michigan, I would say yes. I think he could be an Eberflus type of defensive tackle. But from what I've seen so far from him in the NFL, I would say no. Now, I will say this. The fact that Mozzie lost all that weight does not hurt him in this scheme because in the old scheme, we wanted him to two gap, which means we want you to be big and fat and stand up and be able to be strong against a guard. So when you lose that weight and now you're undersized, now you got a problem. But in a one gap scheme, you're just asking him to be big and strong and get upfield as soon as possible. So if that loss of weight has given him more explosiveness and he's retained the strength he had in Michigan, I think he could be a good fit for the scheme, but I gotta see it implemented. William Wiggins saying, looks like we need to hit free agency, get somebody with Osa. And honestly, I'm with the Lunatic. I think we're losing Osa. They made a comment, Osa's going to be a priority free agent. He probably will, but Osa's going to command minimum $12 million. So the question is Dallas going to pay him $12 million before free agency starts? Because Osa's going to be one of those bidding war type defensive tackles. Somebody's going to overpay for him. So if we get him, we got to get him signed before the free agency starts. How much Mozzie going to cost? Good question, Jack Meeker. Mozzie's still under his rookie contract, so his pay is probably $4 million or less this year. Does Eberflus as DC help D-Law get re-signed for 1 year? That's a good question. Eberflus was here when D-Law was drafted in 2015. So they did kind of overlap with each other for 2 years. So I would think that question would come down to, does D-Law have a good relationship with Eberflus? And does Eberflus feel that D-Law can be a penetrating defensive end in his scheme? If you did gun to head right now, I would probably say D-Law does not fit this game because he's up in age. He's never been a penetrating defensive end. And then also, you got Sam Williams. I think Sam Williams has a chance to be really good in this game because, well, except for the S in hits, outside of that, I think he's a good fit in this game. I just say that. So I like Sam Williams. I really like Marshawn Nealon in this game. I really like Chauncey Golston in this game. I think one of those two could be a real star as a left defensive end. Sam Williams, we'll see what happens. So because we got those three guys and then D-Law, I would probably say early guess D-Law's probably out of here. But you never know what kind of relationship him and Eberflus have. Great point, Jack Meeker. Carl Lawson did play under our new D-line coach. I'll get to that in a second, too. Great questions coming in so far. Thank you guys for all your comments. Jack Meeker saying, I read something about a D tackle in Chicago who might be a target for us as he played for Eberflus. I looked at Chicago's free agents. They have a couple of guys who are free agents, but it's not household names. I would be shocked if one of those guys does not end up in Dallas just because of familiarity. But I don't think it's going to be a needle mover type guy that you would expect. Now, I do expect a couple of linebackers to come here because you're going to need a linebacker who knows this scheme and knows what it takes to be your cleanup guy, because I don't think our linebackers are experienced enough to do that. Edgar saying the Jones are not aggressive in free agency. They wait till the summer to make moves. You're not getting Osa waiting until the summer. Osa's going to be a day one or day two free agent signing, either here or somewhere else. The Lunatic, we're light at the corner room. Do you think Carson flourishes in this scheme? Absolutely. Kalen Carson ran a cover 2 at Wake Forest, and he was awesome at it. I'm expecting to see him take a huge step forward this year playing in a pure cover 2 scheme. I don't think he's made to be a man corner without help over the top. If you let him bump, get behind a receiver, and know he has a safety over top, I think we're going to unlock something with Carson. So I'm really looking forward to seeing his growth in this game. Somebody asked a question about Micah, and I think I may have overlooked it, so I'm trying to find it. I apologize. Oh, it's Edgar. Will Micah be an edge or a linebacker like his time in Penn? I would like to see him along the D-line. That's a good question. To be honest, I think because of traits, he would be a better linebacker, but because Eberflus doesn't blitz his linebackers often, that's going to really neutralize Micah's biggest strength. So I would probably expect to see Micah be more of an edge in this scheme. And you're going to see situations where they make sure he gets one-on-one matchups with the tackles so that he can really pin his ears back and go. William Wiggins saying we're going to cut Lawson. More than likely, no, because like Jack Meeker said, he's played under our defensive line coach. He's a hustle guy. He's an experienced guy. He's a pass rushing guy. I think he's going to be a perfect fit in the Eberflus scheme. Robert Holderfield, great question talking about the offensive side of the ball. Guys, keep the questions coming. I still got a lot of slides to go through, but I don't mind answering questions as we go along. How likely is it that we get the offensive line coach from Arizona as our OC? I know they said he's a top candidate, but we know how that worked out last time. I may be in the minority on this one, Robert Holderfield, but I hope and pray that we get Arizona's offensive line coach. I think he is known for being an offensive line whisperer. He's taken some mediocre offensive linemen and made them successful. Clayton Adams is his name. He believes in physicality on the front five. I would expect if he were to come here, we would see a couple of big bully guards being signed in free agency, like a Will Hernandez or William Fries. You can look both of those names up. They both big heads, no neck, broad shoulders, punch people in the face instead of blocking type guys. He really believes in building the trenches. And if we're going to have the scheme that I think we're going to have with Brian Schottenheimer with a lot of running, we're going to need an offensive coordinator who's going to teach those offensive linemen to be physical and dictate the flow of the game. Robert Holderfield said other players were a priority before they never got signed. Don't hold your breath. I agree with you 100%, Robert Holderfield. I'm not looking for Osa to be here. Jeff says Lawson is our Dante Fowler. I can see that. Quiddy Pay with the Colts. Carl Lawson fits that type of player. The Lunatic, we need help on defense. Do you think Golson played well enough? Yeah, I think he did, but I think he's going to be the priority. I think he's going to be the priority over Osa. I think we're going to make that move to get him re-signed. William Wiggins. This is why I like Clayton Adams. I think he's going to unlock something with Guyton and Steele. And since we're on the offensive side of the ball, I would probably talk about this next week once the offensive staff gets rounded out. But I'll go ahead and touch base on it now. And before I do, we got a lot of viewers, but those likes are still relatively low. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe. And if you could, make sure you share this podcast because I'm giving out a lot of information about the coaching staff that most podcasters don't normally touch. They just give you hot takes and just try to give you conflicting stuff to make you try to trigger your emotions one way or the other. It's Edgar asks, what is the YouTube? If you go back to the top of the comments, I put my link in the comments so you can find it in there. Let's see. Jack Meeker asks, do we keep J. Lou? The D is nickel almost 70% of the time. Unfortunately, I think Jordan Lewis is going to be similar to Osa. He's built a real reputation around the league this past year. There are a lot of teams that really need nickel backs, and I've always said he's one of the top nickel backs. I think he's going to get a deal that's too big for us to match. I'm looking at the Jets, I'm looking at the Commanders, and I'm looking at the Lions. They all have a ton of money. Jordan Lewis is from Detroit, so I think he would love to play for his hometown team. He loves Dan Quinn. The Commanders have a ton of money, so they're going to give him a blank check. And I think Dan Quinn loves him back. And I think Aaron Glenn from Detroit really likes him, and he's now at the Jets. So I'm expecting Jordan Lewis to go to one of those three teams. William Wiggins saying move Guyton the right tackle. We'll see about that one. An interesting topic that nobody's really discussed. And I was just about to talk about it, but I talked about the likes. When you look at our offensive scheme, and this is going back to what I said before about up-tempo and quick routes. The problem I had with the Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore scheme, all of the plays take 4 or 5 seconds to develop. So you've got one guy running 20 yards. You've got another guy running 15 yards. You got this guy running 20 yards. And then you got one guy running a hitch. So if you don't throw the hitch, it's going to take you 3 to 4 seconds before you have any receiver in a position to get open. We put our tackles in a bad situation, asking them to block by themselves for 3 to 4 seconds. So I think going to a scheme like Brian Schottenheimer is going to do, where you're going to cut it down from 4 seconds to 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, I think that's really going to help our tackles. Secondly, because we're going to run the ball so much, Tyler Guyton had a positive run blocking grade. Terrence Steele had a top 10 run blocking grade. So if we're going to run the ball as much as people think we are, those guys may come in very useful. And the fact that teams won't know whether we're running or passing, that may also help them out in terms of the pass coverage, unless there's an obvious passing down. And then we just got to cross our fingers and hope they can hold up. But I think just the nature of the new scheme is going to make both of those guys look like better players. So I'm expecting us to give them at least one more year to see what happens. Now, if they end up trading Terrence Steele, I wouldn't be surprised. But the fact that he was such a great run blocking tackle, and we're going to go to a more run blocking scheme, I would be shocked if Terrence Steele gets cut or traded this year. All right, guys. So let's talk about the defensive coaches because that's where all the moves were made in this offseason so far. So as you guys know, in the past 12 hours, Eberflus has pretty much assembled his position coaches. And these are your three position coaches. Going from left to right, you got your defensive line coach, Andre Whitecotton. You've got your linebackers coach, Dave Borgani. Is it Borgani or Borganzi? I think it's Borgani. And then you've got your DB coach in Andre Curtis. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background about all these players and why I love the team fit. Going back to what I said before, Brian Schottenheimer, it looks like he's getting to pick his own staff. Matt Eberflus is getting to pick his own staff right now. And what that does for me is three things. Number one, all of our coaches are under 50, except for Eberflus. So you're going to bring some youth and some energy in terms of the defense. We don't have any 65-year-old coaches plotting around. Matt Eberflus is 53. He's still relatively young in terms of coaching years. All of our position coaches are 45 or under, and they've all played the sport. So you're going to have some guys who are really going to be energetic. And from what I've read about White Cotton and Andre Curtis, they're both get in your face type of position coaches. So they're definitely going to bring out the best in all of our players. Number two, consistency. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. All of our coaches have ties to either Matt Eberflus or the scheme that he runs. So a problem, I talked about this at the beginning of the show. When you look at all the old coaches, they had to inherit position coaches, assistant coaches. So, for example, I'll bring up Bill Parcells because he's kind of the gold standard. Bill Parcells, for his entire career, was a 3-4 defensive coach. When he became the coach of the Cowboys, our defensive coordinator was Monty Kiffin, who runs the Tampa 2, and Matt Eberflus, who's his disciple. We had to make Monty Kiffin run a 3-4. So we were in a square peg in a round hole situation where we're trying to get a guy who doesn't run something to run something because the head coach wants it this way, but the defensive coordinator does it this way. When Bill Parcells left, whoever the next coach was still had to keep the same defensive coordinator, the same linebacker coach, so on and so forth. It never changes. With Eberflus, he's picked all his own guys. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Edgar. Let me post it on X for you. No, unfortunately, it's Edgar. X does not allow me to make comments. So if you just go to YouTube and type in Bluff City Cowboys, it'll pop right up. So secondly, consistency. I just talked about it. Eberflus is picking his own guys. They all have experience with his scheme, and they all have experience with him. The third thing is experience. Goes back to consistency. Every coach on his staff has been coaching for 10 years. A couple of these guys were considered for defensive coordinator positions this offseason. They did interviews for defensive coordinator positions. So these guys know what they're talking about, and they know what Eberflus wants. They're basically Eberflus disciples. So to me, those are all good things. We're not inheriting a linebackers coach who used to run a 3-4, and now we're bringing him in. We're not inheriting Leon Lett, who, while he may or may not have been a good defensive line coach, he was basically one of Jerry's old boys. So we're getting to see. Oh, I see you got on YouTube now. So thank you, Edgar. I appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you follow Edgar's lead and hit that subscribe button to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So that's kind of what I like about the coaches. So now let's talk a little bit about each coach and what they bring. So we'll start with the defensive line. And this is Andre Whitecotton. Andre Whitecotton started off, he was a defensive assistant for the Jaguars. From there, he went to Buffalo as an assistant D-line coach. Then he went to the Niners as a D-line coach. And then he finished off with the Jets before he came here. And he was actually up for some interviews to be a defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, also for the San Francisco 49ers. Let me tell you what I like about the Andre Whitecotton signing. And Terrell McElrath looks like a new name. I hope I didn't butcher it. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. So I made a tweet earlier talking about how our coaches have a lot of Niners influence. We talked about the special teams coach. That influence is blatant. He was the DC. We'll talk about Whitecotton right now. Whitecotton started off as a defensive assistant with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was the assistant defensive line coach. You want to know who the D-line coach was? The current defensive coordinator for the Niners, Robert Saleh. From there, he went to Buffalo. While he was at Buffalo, he was the assistant D-line coach. He worked under Leslie Frazier. And if you guys remember the name, Leslie Frazier was a former defensive coach here. He's also a Tony Dungy disciple, which makes him a Rod Marinelli disciple and a Monty Kiffin disciple. So he learned the Tampa 2-4-3 scheme through them. From Buffalo, he went to San Francisco. Obvious connection. He met Robert Saleh in Jacksonville. He had a position open. He hired him to be his D-line coach. Robert Saleh gets the job with the Jets as the head coach. One of the only guy he brought from the Niners defensive coaching staff was Andre Whitecotton. So he respects Andre Whitecotton that much that he brought him to San Francisco with him and also brought him to the Jets. And by the way, under Andre Whitecotton, the Niners had one of their best defensive line groups in the NFL. And obviously, the Jets have been just completely rolling the past 3 years in terms of their defensive line. So he's going to bring us a lot of experience. He's going to bring us a little bit of that Niners culture. He's only 45 years old, so he's going to be a young guy. And from what I've seen and heard, he's one of those Robert Saleh kind of get in your face teachers. So he's going to hold guys accountable and make sure that they are being held to their gap integrity. So I really like that about the Andre Whitecotton signing. Okay, so let's go next to Borgonzi. Dave Borgonzi is the linebackers coach. So we're going to give you guys a little bit of background about Dave Borgonzi. He started off actually as a Cowboys defensive assistant from 2010 to 2013. So his career started off, he was a defensive assistant under Matt Eberflus while Eberflus was in Dallas. From there, he went to Tampa Bay from 2014 to 2017. He was also under Leslie Frazier. Remember what I just said? Leslie Frazier, Monty Kiffin, Rod Marinelli, Tampa 2 defense. That's what Matt Eberflus runs. So this kid, for the first 7 years of his career, he's learned the Tampa 2. So he's going to give us a lot of experience. From Tampa Bay, Matt Eberflus gets the defensive coordinator job with the Colts. First thing he does, he brings over Dave Borgonzi as his linebackers coach with Indianapolis. Matt Eberflus gets the job in Chicago. He brings Dave Borgonzi to be his linebackers coach with Chicago, with the Colts with Chicago. So 3 of his 4 stops out of his 14-year career have been as a Matt Eberflus disciple. The only other 3 years he wasn't with Matt Eberflus, he was in Tampa Bay running the Tampa 2 defense. So he's going to bring a wealth of Tampa 2 knowledge to our linebacker core. And if you guys think about the linebackers that he's crossed paths with throughout the course of his career, you think about the linebackers in Tampa Bay, you go to Indianapolis, you got Shaq Leonard, you go to Chicago, you got Tremont Edmonds, you've got Roquan Smith. So he's coached some great linebackers, and he's very familiar with this scheme. So he's another guy. He's only 43 years old. So you're bringing in another young coach with a ton of experience who understands the assignment of what the defensive coordinator wants. To me, this was a home run signing. Last one. The defensive backs coach, Andre Curtis. Now, I know we got a lot of fans who are upset that we lost Al Harris. I'm upset too. Al Harris did a great job as our defensive backs coach. What I will say about this scheme, this new scheme has more of an emphasis on the safeties than the corners. Under the Dan Quinn scheme, your cornerback set the tone. And he has a variation of the Legion of Boom cover 3, cover 1. Under the Eberflus cover 2 scheme, your safeties and linebackers are going to do a lot of cleaning up. So you want your safeties to be smart and understand assignments. So even though we lost a great DB coach in Al Harris, I think we needed a DB coach who's going to emphasize more on the safety position. And this is what Andre Curtis does. He started his career out as the Rams DB coach. From there, he went to New Orleans for 3 years under Sean Payton. From there, he went to Seattle. So look at these Seattle years. He was on the coaching staff that was the architect of the Legion of Boom. So if you like Cam Chancellor, you like Earl Thomas, he was right there in the middle of that coaching group. He was the DB coach. So he's going to bring you a wealth of knowledge on how to coach up safeties and corners. And then after he left Seattle, which was the tail end of Legion of Boom 2021, he went to Chicago as a DB coach. I don't know if you guys follow Chicago or not, but Chicago has had one of the best secondaries in the NFL for the past 3 years. Outside of Dallas, they've probably been top 3 to 5 in terms of takeaways. So you're bringing in a DB coach who's going to get your safeties ready. He's going to get your corners ready. He's going to bring toughness, and he's going to bring accountability. And he has a wealth of experience from being the DB coach for arguably the greatest secondary in the history of the NFL. Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker. You could just name the corners. Kenny Moore with the Colts. I can't think of the cornerbacks in Chicago right now, but there are a lot of safeties, a lot of corners. Legion of Boom. I mean, this guy's one of the architects. Jeff asked the question, do you think Eberflus brings in a safety or two? Absolutely, he's bringing in a safety. I don't see any way that Donovan Wilson is a starter on this team this year. I wouldn't be shocked if Donovan Wilson gets cut or traded. He does not fit this scheme. He is not a deep half of the field safety. I would fully expect to see Marquise Bell or one of our other safeties. Maybe Mukwamu goes back to safety. I could see one of those guys getting a legitimate shot to be that starting strong safety. Or we're going to see DB from Chicago or Indy or Buffalo who gets signed by the Cowboys. Donovan Wilson is not going to be our starting safety this year. There's no way possible. So, yeah. So, this is pretty much our coaching staff. We've got two guys who followed Eberflus for a decade. They know the cover two scheme backwards and forwards. And then you've got one coach who is one of the architects of the Legion of Boom, who coached for 3 years under Eberflus, who has a very strong idea of what Eberflus wants in terms of his secondary. So that's pretty much all I have about the coaching staff. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. I gave you a lot of information, but I wanted to make sure everybody had a clear understanding of what we actually got. So don't let people discourage you by saying, well, I don't know these guys. I mean, if they don't know them, that's their fault. These guys are all experienced. They know the scheme. They're young, and they're going to set the tone on the field and in the meeting room. It's not going to be an easy day for any of these defensive players anymore. And these guys are somewhat players coaches too. James Bowie, as we gonna have to get Donovan in the box and get Hooker out of there. He's too slow. James, Donovan's definitely gone. He does not fit this scheme. This scheme does not play box safeties. Safeties have a responsibility in coverage. Hooker will probably stick around. I'm not confident he'll be the starter depending on who's available in free agency. This is an extremely deep safety free agent group. I like Andre Cisco as a guy that I could expect to see as a Cowboy strong safety. So remember that name. He came from Jacksonville. They ran a version of a cover two scheme. Smart safety, can play free or strong. Great in deep half of the field. So I'm looking at Andre Cisco as a top free agent target. I'll go through those later in the offseason, who I think will touch. Yeah, came from Syracuse, one of my favorite safeties coming out of that draft. Jeff asked, is Hooker safe? I would lean towards no. I think it's a tall task to just completely overhaul your safety room in one offseason, unless there's just somebody who's great who pops up. But because of that reason, I don't expect Hooker to be cut because he is a veteran. He is a smart safety. And if I'm not mistaken, he may have overlapped with Eberflus with the Colts. Let me look at. So he played 2017, 18, 19, 20 with the Colts. So Malik Hooker did overlap his time with the Colts with Matt Eberflus. Let me just go back and check to make sure. So Eberflus that's Shodney. So Eberflus was with the Colts from 2018 to 2021. Malik Hooker was with the Colts from 2017 to 2020. So that means he knows Matt Eberflus' scheme. He was with them for 3 years. That pretty much solidifies it, Jeff. Malik Hooker safe because at a minimum, he plays a key position and he knows the scheme. You're not going to let that walk out the door. Even if you have a more talented guy there, he's going to be on the team as a teacher at a minimum. So Malik Hooker safe. Donovan Wilson, not so much. Okay, so somebody asked a question. I want to come back to it. Robert Holderfield says, I may have talked about this before. Can I talk about it? What's the main difference between the Tampa 2 versus the 3-4? All right, so, I mean, the main difference, I would have to redraw it up, but the main difference between the Tampa 2 and the 3-4, you can run a version of the Tampa 2 with the 3-4, but the major difference, the Tampa 2 is a 4-man front with a heavy nickel. So you got With the Tampa 2, you're going to have 4 defensive linemen and you're going to have 2 linebackers, your Mike and your Will. This is a cornerback. I'm going to put him back at the natural. This is the natural slot position. And this guy's going to be right here, natural corner position. So in a Tampa 2, you're going to have 4 down linemen. You're going to have 2 linebackers. You're going to have 5 DBs, corner, 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 safety, safety. In a 3-4, you're going to have 3 down linemen. You're going to have a linebacker here, a linebacker here, another linebacker here, and then a linebacker here. So in a 3-4, you're going to have 3 defensive linemen and then 4 linebackers. Now, you can run a version of a Tampa 2 out of a 3-4. I got to take a guy out because so you can run a version of a Tampa 2 in a 3-4. The only problem with that is this is going to be a linebacker trying to cover your nickel receiver. Your slot receiver. So you're going to put yourself at a major disadvantage. And because you have a linebacker now trying to cover your slot receiver, you're almost forced to run zone. So in a nickel, 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs, you can run man or zone because you got 3 corners out there. But if you have a linebacker right here, you almost have to run a zone defense. So let me just draw it up so you can see what the responsibilities are. And these aren't set in stone. It's just a basic concept. Same thing. Safety, he's got this half of the field. Safety, he's got this half of the field. Because this is a linebacker now, you cannot run man in any circumstance. So you're going to have this corner cover 15 yards. You're going to have this linebacker cover the flat. This linebacker is going to cover here. This linebacker is going to cover here. This linebacker is going to cover the flat. This corner is going to cover 15 yards. That's kind of what a Tampa 2 with a 3-4 would look like. You have to run zone. If not, this slot receiver is going to eat you alive. But if you run it with a nickel, so now you got your D lineman, you got your 3 tech, got your 1 tech. Sorry, this is the 3 tech, 5 tech. This is your nose. This is your end. Nickel linebacker, middle linebacker. And this is now a corner. So now with this one, deep half, you only got one guy covering this spot. This guy covers the flat. And now these corners, as I talked about before, if this is a receiver, this corner, because he has more speed, his job is to stay right underneath this receiver. So if this receiver runs an out route, the corner's job is to stay right under that out route. If this corner runs a drag route, this receiver runs a drag route, this corner is going to stay underneath the drag route because he should be fast enough to keep up. And if not, this linebacker is going to give you a little bit of help by slowing him down so that this corner can catch up. That's if it's man. If it's zone, If it's zone, then this receiver is going to cover here. He's going to cover all this. And this receiver is going to cover here. Because this cornerback is more athletic than a linebacker, he's able to cover more space. So this honestly, this linebacker is going to be more here. And this cornerback is going to be more curl flat here. So yeah. So in a nickel, this cornerback, because he's more athletic, he's going to have to cover more space, but he has the speed to do it. In a 3-4, you're going to get your linebacker killed if you're relying on him to cover a quarter of the field. Well, thank you, James Bowie. I really appreciate that. I've been trying to work on getting something like this for a long time because I really love the X's and O's of the game. So I really love drawing it out for people who don't understand. But yeah, you don't run a cover 2 with a 3-4. If you do, you have to run a heavy zone or you're going to be in serious trouble. So that's pretty much all I have. I think we made some really good hires on the defensive side of the ball. Everybody's under 50 years old. Everybody has a ton of experience. Everybody knows exactly what we're looking for in this scheme. So Matt Eberflus has no coaching curves, no learning curves. He doesn't have to handhold his linebackers coach to let him know that while the DB coach is teaching this, I need you to teach this. That's what we had in years past. I don't have to teach you Tampa 2 concepts like we've had to do in years past. Everybody knows their job. Everybody knows their responsibilities. So now when they get in to draw up the scheme and they get on the field, he doesn't have to worry about, does this linebackers coach know what to tell this linebacker what to do when this safety does this. The linebacker coach already knows. The defensive line knows gap integrity. If the line shifts, the linebackers know to go here. The defensive tackles know to go here. You don't have any confusion. I feel like, me personally, there was a lot of confusion because we had a lot of round pegs, square pegs, round holes, because our coaches weren't well versed in the scheme. So they weren't able to clearly convey it to the players. And then the players got on the field and didn't know what to do. That's not going to happen right now. Everybody knows their responsibility in terms of the coaches. And I think they're going to do a really good job of explaining that. But again, going back to the very beginning, in order to do that, you need players that can hustle, who are intense, who can generate takeaways, and most importantly, they have to be smart. Now, I feel like the majority of our defense has all 4 of these. We're going to see who does and who doesn't, because they're going to get out of here pretty quick, I think. Because I feel like Matt Eberflus is going to get free reign to kind of do what he needs to do. And like Jeff said, just think of a linebacker trying to cover CD. That's why you can't run cover 2 man out of a 3-4. Even the most athletic linebacker, Micah Parsons, not going to consistently cover CD Lamb. So 11 Demos and Micahs. I wish. Hey, do not discount Leofow. Leofow, I think, is going to be a superstar in this game. He's extremely smart. He's extremely athletic. And his biggest knock was he played with his hair on fire, and sometimes he overran stuff in college. He did a better job at the end of last year by kind of slowing down, and you saw the big plays happening. I think year 2, with this scheme and him getting to sit down and learn, I think Leofau's gonna come out and be special this year. So be on the lookout for that. The real Darrell or Daryl, Dallas has to become more disciplined. Penalties and turnovers will have you saying Fiji on 3 come playoff time. I agree. They have to become more disciplined. But like I just said, I personally feel like a lot of that came from the coaches not being able to explain what we're looking for. Matt Eberflus is a no nonsense type of guy. All the coaches he brought in are no nonsense type of guys. I love Al Harris. I think he may be a little too friendly with the players. My personal opinion. Um, I love Dan Quinn. We all know he was friendly with the players. So I feel like that's where a lot of the discipline issues came from. I think this group of coaches that we brought in right here, I don't see friendly with the players out of any of these guys. I see get in your face and do it right, or I'll bring somebody else in to do it because the scheme can get by with lesser talent if you're going to hustle, if you're going to be smart, and if you're going to do your job. Okay, we got a couple more questions, then I'll get out of here. But thank you guys. Great questions, great comments. The views are still going up, so I hope that means you guys are enjoying what I'm talking about. If you do, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this. Let people know what we were talking about. Jack Meeker asked the question, does Marshawn Nealon fit? Absolutely, Marshawn Nealon fits. Marshawn Nealon is probably going to step in and be a starter. I would expect him and Golston to probably compete heavily for that left DN spot if D-Law doesn't return, which I'm leaning 70-30 that he doesn't return. If he doesn't, I think Nealon's going to be a star in this game. He's strong. He's fast. He has heavy hands. And he's a very smart player. That's one of the reasons everybody had him so high on their boards, because he was a strong, fast, smart player. So I think him and Leofau will probably take the biggest jumps in this game. The real Daryl, what is your opinion on getting better at both safety spots? I guess you must have just joined us, Daryl, because I just talked about it. Donovan Wilson has no chance of being on this team. He does not fit this scheme at all. He cannot cover deep. He has never shown a tendency to be disciplined when he is playing in space, and he's more of a big hitter than come downhill and make a play. He can make a hit, but he can't make a play. So I don't think Wilson's gonna be here. Malik Hooker, I think we could upgrade him. I know we can upgrade him because the free agent market is going to be extremely deep when it comes to safeties. The problem is Malik Hooker, the first 3 out of 4 of his years in the NFL, he played under Matt Eberflus with the Colts in the scheme. So he should know the scheme very well. That's going to give him an advantage unless they bring in a safety from somewhere who's already played in this game. That's going to give him an advantage that he's going to be too smart to let go of. Now, he may be a backup. I don't know. But I think he's definitely going to be here. So when I'm looking at some of the names who are available. My top guy is Andre Cisco, former Jacksonville Jaguar. Can play free or strong, was amazing in college playing deep center field. I think he's going to be cheap enough that we could possibly get him, and he would be a major upgrade. I also like Javon Holland from Miami, one of the smartest players in the league. I think his price is going to be too high. Then we have Justin Simmons, a name you guys all know, former Minnesota Viking. I think his price may drop low enough that if we wanted to get him, we could. He's an older player. He still has a couple years left in the tank. He could play free or strong. So if we don't get an Andre Cisco because he's 25 and his price may be too high because somebody's going to overpay for a young guy, I would look for Justin Simmons as an option because he's smart and he knows how to play football. Another guy I look at, Honey Badger. Another guy, long in the tooth, but he's a smart player. We all know he plays great in open field. So you can bring him in, and he has some experience playing free and strong. So you could possibly bring him in and also be an upgrade. Andre Cisco, Justin Simmons, Javon Holland, I think will price out, and Honey Badger may be in our wheelhouse. So those are 4 names I'm looking at if you're looking for an upgrade. I absolutely do not expect Donovan Wilson to be here. Uh, I expect Marquise Bell to get a legitimate shot to be a starter at either free or strong. He's another guy, smart guy, um, plays good enough in open space, understands the linebacker position and the safety position. So he's going to already kind of know responsibilities between both of them. This scheme relies heavily on the safety calling plays. So I think that gives Malik Hooker a leg up. But I think Marquise Bell may be smart enough to catch on. He was known as a smart guy in college. Marquise Bell. Mukwamu may go back to safety. I think he may be really good as a cover 2 corner, though. This is his last shot. He has to come in and show it. So I think we might be okay at corner. I definitely see at least one upgrade at safety. We're going to have to bring in at least 2 linebackers. So I would probably, in a later show, I'll go check out the Colts and the Bears to see what free agents they have. I'll also check out Buffalo because Leslie Frazier runs a very similar scheme. I'll also check out the Rams because the Rams run a similar scheme. So I'll check out those 4 teams to see what free agents they have at linebacker and safety and defensive tackle. And in a future episode, when we talk more about free agency, I'll give you guys some of the options I really like here. Wanye Thomas. I have mixed feelings on Wanye Thomas, Jeff. I like him as a player. Some people love him, and I just don't see it. I think he's good enough to play in this game, but I don't know. They're gonna bring their own guys in. I can assure you of that. I know in the past, Jerry and Steven have kind of been tight on the purse strings, but just looking at recent history, they tend to give their defensive coordinators what they want as best as they can. So while it may not be a big splash signing, I do expect a couple of guys that come in at defensive tackle, linebacker, and safety because the defense is built down the middle. So I'm expecting some signings from those 3 levels of the field to come in and be contributors. All right, we're at an hour 45 minutes. The views are still holding steady. We got a lot of people watching us from X. So thank you guys for joining us from X. I would really love to hear what you guys on X have to say. So the next time we go live, if you could, please join us on YouTube or Facebook so that you can get in that comment section and we can hear you guys' thoughts. Because as we always say, this show is fueled by Cowboys Nation. And you guys always bring it with great questions and great comments. So I would definitely love to hear your thoughts on any conversations we have. So we appreciate you guys watching on X. But if you get a chance, just come on over, join us on YouTube or Facebook so that we can get you in those comments. Also, we do a lot of giveaways on this show. And in order to be a part of the giveaway, you have to be able to leave a comment, answer a question. So I don't want you guys to miss out on any opportunities to win any prizes. So if you could, please join us YouTube, join us on Twitter, hit that subscribe, join us on YouTube, join us on Facebook, hit that subscribe button, be a part of the conversation. Edgar, thank you for joining. Really appreciate all your comments tonight. Hope you become a regular and continue to join us on future episodes. Jeff asked, the bigger question is, does Dallas restructure contracts to create cap? Dak's contract already has a trigger. It's going to happen. I know people don't think it's going to happen. They're going to keep telling you Dak's cap here is going to be $90 million. That's not going to happen. His contract is going to be restructured. CeeDee Lamb's contract has a trigger. His contract is going to be restructured. Between those two contracts, that's going to give you about $40 to $50 million for this year. You cut Donovan Wilson, that gives you another $5. If you choose to cut Terrence Steele, which I don't think they will, that'll give you another 10. So I would be shocked if we don't go into the offseason with at least $40 million in cap space. So we can do a lot of wiggling with that. Luckily, the positions that Eberflus likes are not the highest price positions. So if you need a starting defensive tackle, you can get one for under $10 million. If you need a starting linebacker, you can get one for $5 or $6 million. If you need a starting strong safety, you can get one for $4 or $5 million. You don't have to touch the corner position. You don't have to touch the defensive end position. So I could see us, if they restructure, I could see them opening the purse strings, bringing in 2 or 3 guys who could come in at a relatively cheap price and be instant starters. Jack Meeker says, don't we have 17 million carryover? Let me go check really quick. So for you guys who want to follow the cap, I always tell people to go to spotrack.com. And I'll put that in the comments right here. This is my favorite site to check all things free agency as well as salary cap. They give a great breakdown of every player on the team. They tell you how much signing bonus they have, how much dead cap they have. They tell you the total dead cap they have for the team. They even tell you what year certain players will become free agents. So if I check right now, the Cowboys, no, actually, they're going to start the year off in the negative, Jack Meeker. They did have a $17 million rollover from last year, so you are right about that. But because of the triggers in salaries and signing bonuses, particularly with Dak and CeeDee Lamb, that pretty much ate up the rollover. So we're going into the year with pretty much right at zero cap space. So that's why I say you restructure Dak, you restructure Lamb, and if they were smart, if they extending Micah will actually save us money. It will not cost us more money. Micah's cap hit is $24 million this year. If they were to sign him and make him the highest paid defensive player in the league, the team would still save about $12 or $13 million on the cap. And Micah would be the highest paid defensive player in the league. So hopefully they get that done. They don't slow around with it. Robert Holderfield says, I saw an article that showed a way for the Cowboys to get $90 million. Yeah. You restructure Dak, you restructure Lamb, you extend Micah, you cut Wilson, you cut Terrence Steele. That gets you $90 million. Easy. So it's possible. But we could just do the restructures and still hit 50. So the money's there. They just have to be willing to trigger it before free agency. And Edgar saying Dak and CeeDee killed us. That's how the Cowboys structure their contracts. It's not Dak and CD. The Cowboys structure every contract where year one is going to be dirt cheap. Year two is going to be a balloon. And they put that balloon in there so that they can restructure year two. They do it with everybody's contracts, and that's just how they do business. So if you want to get mad, don't get mad at the players. Get mad at the ownership for still using this antiquated system of writing contracts instead of doing like other teams and putting in option bonuses and guarantees on future years. But Dak and CD should get restructured, and it'll open up a ton of money. Yeah, I agree. The contracts, the Jones family, the way they do business. That's the real problem. And unfortunately, we have to win despite them. There's no way around it. All right, guys. So thank you for watching. Was a really good show tonight. You guys brought it as usual. There was a lot of new people joining us tonight. I hope you guys continue to come back and join us. We will be going live every Wednesday, 8:30 Central Standard Time, Fifth Quarter Podcast. Because it is the off season, we may do a couple of Thursday shows. Because next week is Super Bowl week, I may not go live. I don't know, but if I do, 8:30 Central Standard Time. After the Super Bowl, we're gonna go straight into free agency and the draft. So we're gonna start off. We're gonna talk about the 5 biggest positions of need. So we're gonna do a full breakdown of the entire roster, who we have, how many years they have left on their contracts, what is their influence on the team. We're gonna rank them. We're gonna talk about the 5 biggest positions, and then once we get those 5 biggest positions, I will go through, I will research all the free agents, and based off of scheme fit and salary, I will give you guys 5 players who are options for us to sign at those positions. Once we get through free agency, once we get through all that, it should be the first week of free agency. From there, we'll talk about who's been signed, who's left over, and then from there, we'll go into our draft. Because if you guys know how the Cowboys operate, the Cowboys base their draft off of who they sign as free agents. So they're never going to go into the draft and have a position of need. If they do, you already know that's who we're going to take. Look at left tackle last year. So we're going to go through free agency first. Then we're going to go through the draft. I have a lot of guests lined up who are extremely knowledgeable about college football. So they're going to come on here and give us a wealth of knowledge about a lot of positions. And then from there, we'll go into the draft, and then we'll go into the offseason. So we got a lot of content for you guys. So make sure you like, you subscribe, you share, and continue to join us every Wednesday night at 8:30 Central Standard Time for the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you tuning in. And as always, let's go Cowboys. I will see you guys, if not next week, the week after the Super Bowl. Have a good night.